Now, you mentioned Latino and African American students. Could you also explain to us how that achievement gap impacts Native Americans?
Definitely, and I apologize for leaving that out because that's probably even a greater need for us personally right now. And I like talking about our little school and our environment because I really do think it helps us focus on not just these overall blanket statistics, but real kids. We have 20 Native American students right now, and I think the most shocking statistic is that 30% of our Native American students graduated on time 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it is a small group of students, so that rate does fluctuate greatly depending on those individual students. But that real need for relationship and mentorship is there to provide those students those A's in life as well.
So Pete, as we go and we talk about relationships, tell us what mentoring does. How does that create a relationship with a student? What impact does that have?
Well, statistically and just when Angie talked about those 3 areas, we can go through a list and I can ask you, who's somebody who provided you access in life to something? Who's somebody that provided you awareness in life to an opportunity or to something that you could become? And who's somebody that's been an advocate for you? So at a time when you maybe went to the door or you went and wanted to become something and they said you couldn't be that, or you're just too young, you can't, you just got to wait till you're older. And somebody stepped in and said, give them a chance, give them a shot. Maybe a reference on your resume, whatever it may be. We can all nod our heads. A lot of us can nod our heads and we look back really fondly and say, this is who that person was. I mean, for me, I can go down the list, and it can be somebody that's older than you, somebody that's your peer, somebody that's younger. And fortunately for me, I can name somebody in all 3 of those areas. I can name multiple people. But for our students, when you ask about the impact, and you can think about what that impact was on you. It may have helped you get to where you are today. It may have helped you over that bump, or may have allowed you to be more resilient when that challenge came up. But for a number of our students, the struggling part for me is when you ask them, who are those individuals? Some might say Angie, some might say myself, some might say you. And I'll have the good fortune of meeting them for 15 minutes, an hour, a week. And that's very flattering. But it's also, who are those people who provided those life aids throughout the course of their life? And sometimes they won't say anybody. They'll really struggle to say somebody. And so the impact of what mentoring can do is it provides that life aid for somebody to provide them awareness of who they can become, where, the access to things that maybe their mom or dad or somebody in their life really wants them to have, but for whatever reason at this point in time, they just may not be able to provide that access. And it's not that they don't want to, they may not have the resources to be able to do that. Or be an advocate for them. And being an advocate, whether it's socially, one of our focuses is academic success, saying, I'm going to advocate for you to be in these classes. I'm going to advocate, we provide you awareness and you told me this is what you want to be. I'm going to be somebody that when something's not being done to you, like social injustice or whatever it may be, I'm going to stand there right beside you and I'm going to advocate for everything that you deserve. I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm going to help you get to where you need to be. And that impact is huge. Not only do you see that at the end, we always talk about the stories and, at college graduation or high school graduation, their mentors there, but we can see the impact that has on a daily basis if you forge a relationship with a young person or with anybody in this community. And so the impact's, it's huge, it's significant. I could tell you story after story that I've heard, we've experienced.
Would you like to share any of those? Of course, respecting confidentiality, but would you feel comfortable to share a story or two so we can really understand what it is that mentoring does?
Well, it can be relatively simple. We were listening to some young scholars talk about their experiences with their mentor. A community member asked them, who's your mentor? And they all actually mentioned the same person, and I'm not even sure he was aware that he was their mentor. But it was small things, like he told me when I wasn't doing well in school, how to go talk to the teacher, and told me that if I didn't feel comfortable, he would go with me and he would sit and show me how to have that discussion with the teacher about getting extra help. And so mentorship can be relatively simple, like something like just how to go get help on your homework, but it can also be very significant in terms of long-term goal setting, and then very specific deliberate steps, such as what classes are you going to take, going and visiting a college, talking about those different things that you might need to do to reach a long-term goal. So I think there's a lot of, and I know you have a lot of great
Well, I mean, it's
examples,
just
too.
a ton of different examples. I mean, what Angie spoke about, but a young man, it's really having somebody that listens to everything that they're saying. He gave up, and we asked him, we just said, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, what do you, that standard question, I think people are still asking me that. And, you know, this young man said, you know, when I grow up, I want to own a drywalling business. And, you know, everybody was, you know, some people said lawyers, some people said doctors, and a mentor is somebody who really listens and understands what's being said. And the thing that I took out of that was not, you know, well, somebody said drywall, you know, why would you want to do that? And he said, well, my dad works drywall, works really hard, and I'm really proud of him. But the thing that I took out of that, he says, I want to own my own drywalling business. This young man is aware of an opportunity that's out there that would fit him, okay? But he needs access to those things that would allow him to own his own drywalling business. From his dad, he learned hard work. He learned, you know, the things that his dad has maybe had to do, sacrifice for him to be where he is. But we, as a mentor, it's listening. It's listening and hearing what they're saying. Not infusing what they should be saying. And he said, own it. And as a mentor, I can advocate for him. Maybe it's business classes, so when he's doing the books, you know, he can understand, you know, making loss and profit, those type of things. Get him in touch with people who own businesses. You know, as a small business owner, what are the challenges those things face? A mentor can be is an extremely important resource to individuals in their life. And so, again, the stories are countless, but the impact is huge.
Sometimes it's just that daily encouragement, because mentorship isn't going to make all the problems disappear, but a mentoring relationship can provide people individuals that opportunity to work through things, that ongoing encouragement. You're going to get through this. What did you learn? What are you going to do to make it better? And so there are some very specific intentional things that can occur, but there's also just the aspects that you get out of that relationship, the encouragement, that ongoing support.
And I also think it's important, too, to just say it's not replacing a parental figure or a grandparent or somebody else that's in their life. I mean, with El Central being involved, one of the things we really know is if you put a parent here and you put a mentor here, what do they have in common? And they have that student's best interest in common. And so it's, you know, for that hour or 2 hours or whatever you're able to provide, I mean, you really, you know, sometimes, you know, your parents always say, they listen to everybody but me. It takes somebody else to say that, you know, outside of the home. And as a mentor, that's what you're doing. And so sometimes we do get the misnomer that we're replacing the parent, or the parent doesn't have the best interest in mind. And I think it's important to know that, you know, you can really help enhance. And when you know, meet that parent and you're talking to them, thank you for doing what you're doing. And they're going to say, you know, thank you for saying exactly what I'm saying. They're not listening to me. You know how a 9 or a 10 or, you know, a 14-year-old can be. I really appreciate you reinforcing what I'm saying in life.
Well, I feel the same way from the school perspective, too, because I think a lot of times people say, well, aren't you doing all these things in the schools? Why aren't the kids meeting those same goals? And I think a lot of times I have students who, because at our school, graduation is not optional, it's mandatory. And students will often say, well, Ms. Zabawa, you're a teacher, you have to say that. And so it's just like that parenting piece. We're working so hard in the schools to help those students. Parents are working so hard. It does help to have a third person saying that same thing and working with everybody together for those individual students.